Will Cain here for Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. As people who love the outdoors, they know what we stand for. They stand for fish, wildlife, and conserving places we call home. They stand for the traditions we inherited and that we must pass on. They stand for great gear, fair prices, expert service, and memorable experiences. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, they stand together for you. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Hour number 2 of the Will Cain Show, ESPN Radio, the ESPN app. I think Tim Hasselbeck stuck around, Hawk, because he just physically could not lead.
Yeah. It made it easier.
Well, his knee is all messed up. He had surgery on the knee. We've got Matt Barry here in studio, SportsCenter host. That's the role for today, the role of all time, the co-host of the Maddie and the Caddy podcast. You can get that anywhere, right? Anywhere podcasts are found, Apple, iTunes, ESPN app.
But as a company guy, I like promoting the app.
ESPN app.
But Apple Podcast sounds cooler.
Like, it does.
Check me out. Because an Apple Podcast, you can be ranked.
Well, I was looking,
Yes.
and you like rankings.
I love
score, I want to win.
We're on ESPN Radio. It's presented by Progressive Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever. Listen, speaking of the rankings, that leads pretty well into Jim Harbaugh's last couple of days of Big Ten media availability down there, over there in Chicago. Harbaugh faced a question. This is a guy who, I think you'd agree, right? You've crossed paths with him. You've crossed paths with the fan base. A guy who likes to make others feel uncomfortable, obviously, rather than being made to feel uncomfortable. Not that that's even possible or easy.
He is very much the guy that is going to let you know he's the alpha dog. And that it's no matter what, it's his show, it's his rules, and he's going to dictate. Even if the question's a legitimate question, he's going to answer it with the way he thinks you should have asked it.
Well, this was a very legitimate question, and someone took a run at Harbaugh and tried to make him feel as uncomfortable as he's made others feel in his time as a coach.
He came into Ann Arbor with perhaps the most hype of any coach in the history of the Big Ten, maybe in all of college football. A few years later, you've got a third place, and fourth place finish, and you're 1-5 against Michigan State and Ohio State. What do you have to do this year to demonstrate to the Michigan community that you are on the path to achieving what they hired you to achieve?
Well, the improvement will lead to success, will lead to championships.
We'll take our next question, Coach, right here on our right.
All right, good talk, Russ. So you hear that from Harbaugh, and I admire the guy asking the question because I think it's a fair, above all else, no matter how you feel about the coach or the program, that's a fair question for Jim Harbaugh here, year 4 in Ann Arbor.
If you can't, there's 2 rules at Michigan. 1 is beat Ohio State. 2 is beat Ohio State. And if you you get fired for beating Ohio State. Brady Hoke couldn't do it. Rich Rod had troubles.
Lloyd Carr had trouble.
And look, that means that if you're Jim Harbaugh, you are not exempt from troubles for beating Ohio State. Here's why Harbaugh gets a lot of problems. 1, comes from the NFL. He's a loud talker. He led San Francisco to 3 consecutive NFC championships, almost won the Super Bowl. But then he comes in as perhaps the most hyped college football hire of all time.
Yeah.
Aside from Saban leaving the Dolphins to go to Tuscaloosa. And he does all the recruiting stunts. He makes it all about him. And he is yet to beat the rival, Ohio State. And he's only beat Michigan State once. Criticism's fair.
Yeah, I think it is fair. But here's what I think about Jim Harbaugh, and this is why I think he has more than a year to be under pressure. is because he's made Michigan football relevant.
Correct.
Again. He's got them in the spotlight. They're in recruits' homes, and they're considering going to Michigan still.
Jumpman logo.
They got the Jordan logo. It's like, oh, that's still a cool place to be, and that's half the battle. He's accomplished that.
Let me say that. Look, I don't think Harbaugh's going anywhere because no one in Ann Arbor has a set of Titleists on them to get rid of him. Right. No one. He's gonna if Harbaugh's out of Michigan, it's because he's going to the NFL.
Matt and the Caddy podcast available on ESPN app. That's right. Get the golf in.
No one's got a set of Pro V1s to fire him like that. But they're not. It's going to be on his own volition if he leaves Michigan. But I don't think he's above criticism because there's a couple things. The Big Ten, to me, every single year is the most winnable conference in college football. Period.
Yes.
And you can't get better than second in your own division. You're not only not winning your division in the top two. Right. And so Harbaugh, he gets paid a lot of money. I think it's $9 million a year. He needs to win conference championships. One other thing, I'll give him one pass. He has not had a good quarterback since he stepped foot in Ann Arbor.
Okay, for a guy who gets a lot of credit for a lot of what Andrew Luck did at Stanford, because that was Harbaugh's previous collegiate stop, and he hasn't been able to find Andrew Luck. Not that Andrew Luck is easy to find, right?
Growing on trees.
No matter where your coaching reach or recruiting reach might be. But Michigan, under Harbaugh, year 1, 10 wins. Year 2, 10 wins. Year 3, 8 and 5. Year 4, we'll see. So it makes sense as we're talking with Matt Berry of SportsCenter fame and also the Matty and the Caddy podcast. It makes sense, Matt, and I know you've done the College Game Day radio show too, that Harbaugh would want a restructuring of the college football playoff. Something he touched on. Hold on, here is Coach Khakis.
Thoughts on the playoff system? I guess the first thing that comes to mind is more would be more. More would be better. In the playoffs, 4 in right now. Let's go to 8 and eventually get to 16.
All right, like milk with a steak or designer stretch cat, like more is better.
More is better. Gold is another thing.
I'm with, like, I hate that I agree, but I'm with him. No. I want more in the playoff. I feel like 6 is easy, 8 is easy.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Why?
You know who doesn't have a problem with the 14 playoff? Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, teams that could actually get there. You know who wants expansion? Teams that can't get there. You know who hasn't been in the playoff? Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. 6 teams isn't easy because 2 teams are going to need a bye.
Right.
So you can't just trot out 6 teams. No, because then we're going to be arguing about which 2 teams deserve a bye.
It's fine.
Oh, that's fine?
That's no problem.
That's
no problem. That's no problem.
We complained to get a college football playoff, and now 4 is not enough. We just had 2 in the BCS, and now you guys want more? Keep it at 4. Because look at the rankings last year, and you tell me that there are 6 to 8 teams that deserve to play for a national championship.
Last year?
Yeah.
There are 6.
Give me another one. If you drop Ohio State on me, I will throw this microphone at you. No. If you go to Iowa and get beat by 22, you should not be in the college football.
What are you going to throw at me if I put Central Florida out there?
Get out of here with Central Florida.
And they went undy.
I don't care where they. Not all records are created equal.
Yeah.
Undefeated doesn't make you good.
No. All those.
Let me walk that back. Undefeated.
That's a tough quote.
Like all undefeateds are created equal.
Yeah,
UCF's not going undefeated in the SEC, and I know they beat Auburn, but they had a month to get ready.
And Auburn was down for that game. I think people watching that game can agree. But I mean, it's a Power 5. Each Power 5 champion gets in. You take one from an at-large from outside the Toledo, from outside the Power 5, and then you don't devalue the regular season, which I think is a load of what, no matter
why.
What. Each Power 5 conference champion gets in. That doesn't devalue the regular season.
I agree with the Power 5.
The way it's set up now, I think it comes down to whatever sports topic du jour you get most tired of. For you, it sounds like the playoff expansion. For me, it's which team got screwed.
Yeah.
We have that conversation after the Final Four. 1 year it's Baylor, 1 year it's Penn State, couple years maybe it's Penn State. I hate that conversation. I'd rather just have the folks in and let them play it out.
You know what I think is overrated and it drives me nuts? I can't stand conference championship games. I can't stand it. I don't need Alabama to prove to me that they were. Now, last year was different because Georgia was a hell of a football team.
Right.
They played the national championship. Georgia's really, really good, and so you had an opportunity to see that. But most years, I don't need another example of why East was better than West or North is better than South, in this case in the Big Ten.
I agree. I think we do away with conference championships. I do think expansion is a good idea, though. If you could take away some of the non-conference games. Now, if you're talking about adding more games to college athletes who already are making $0 per game.
Which they shouldn't.
We're on the same page there. Then I'd say, okay, Harbaugh, you're ridiculous.
Oh.
But if you're taking away some of the like, I don't need to see Alabama versus Middle Tennessee at Texas.
What's up, Furman? Paladins, what's up?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm good on that. If we can, then you can expand to those teams. There's always going to be the conversation. You see it in basketball. There's always teams that should have got in. That's never going to stop. But if you can give more opportunity, I think it's good. More meaningful football in college football is a good thing.
Settle it on the field.
I think the tournament's too big. 68 teams? Yeah. I think it's too many.
I think it's not enough.
You are too young to be get off my lawn guy, but it's Matt Barry. We talk about it all, college football.
My last year in my 30s.
Give me 2 basketball teams.
Maddie and the Caddy.
That's all I need.
Maddie and the Caddy podcast. Get it. ESPN app and obviously Apple iTunes as well, Matt. 6 p.m. Sports Center with Sage Steele.
That's right.
On ESPN.
We had Nick Saban on.
Got Nick Saban, of course. Saban's making the rounds.
You know who he didn't have a problem with? 4-team playoff.
Oh, for sure.
Never.
Yeah. It's 107 games over 500 across 11 seasons.
11 seasons.
Doing just fine. NBA, when we come back, 4 years, $120 million extension for a guy in Kevin Love, who is now the king of Cleveland. Was it a panic move in the land? We'll talk about it. It is Andrew Hawkins and Randy Scott with you. The Will Cain Show, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app. But first, a word from Vivid Seats. Summer is finally here. It's time for us to slowly peel ourselves off the couch and start enjoying plans away from home, heading to concerts and ball games. Certainly at the top of the list for me. Bubba, I know concerts are on the list for you. So when you're searching for tickets, there's no better place to look than the official ticket partner of ESPN. From your front and center or for your favorite band to the upper deck at the park, Vivid Seats has the options to fit your needs. So get on it. Grab your wife, your girl, your buddies, and get to the game. Go to vividseats.com/ESPN to get your exclusive discount offer today. Kevin Love can afford to hand out a few season ticket packages with the new deal that he got. Was it the right move in the land? That's next. Will Cain Show, ESPN Radio.
Will Cain. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. More from the Will Cain Show coming up.
The most popular man on ESPN's campus today coming up in about 12 minutes, aiming for 4:30 with Mike Sando, who helped compile and author this column, this feature right now on ESPN.com. It's the quarterback tiers. It comes out every year, and Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 is the beefiest one. We have plenty of questions for him. I know he's been getting them all day, so he'll be well practiced for us. On the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, Randy Scott, Andrew Hawkins in for Will today. I misspoke. I said Will was back tomorrow. It's middle of next week. Middle of next week for Will. So that is when he is coming back. 888-SAY-ESPN is the phone number, 888-729-3776. And before we move on, I want to get to Nathan from Montana, who has an interesting way of looking at this idea that Jim Harbaugh had about changing the college football playoff. Nathan, what do you got?
So I have heard a lot of excuses and arguments against expanding the playoff. And I think that you made one of the more common dumb ones. No offense. But here's my thought. Prove to me why it's a bad idea. If you look at the FCS, they do 24 teams. If you did it in the BCS, if it was 16, 24, 32, 64, I don't care. How could it be a bad idea? Thank you.
How could the 4 be a bad idea? Well, the 4 is a bad idea because someone is left out every year, and that's annoying. That conversation, I'm annoyed by the conversation. I get that you can say that, like, oh, like, you know, that was a dumb take or whatever. Like, and I don't even know, Hawk, that 6 would fix it, because to me, someone still gets left out if you go with the non-Power 5 conference getting that 6.
I think he's saying explain why 8 or 16 is a bad idea.
I think it's a good idea. I'm not the one arguing against it.
Right. No,
Who
I
is
think
he calling dumb? Was he calling me dumb or Barry dumb?
No, he's saying, though, why is there anyone out there, how could anyone say it's a bad idea?
Barry, that's a conversation for Matt. But I feel
Barry
like,
back
no,
in
but
here.
I feel like, listen, in order to know your argument, you have to know the argument against it. And I feel like the argument against it is it devalues the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
The teams who deserve to be in, by and large, have been in. And if you want to get in, be better. Win all your games. It's sort of that toughen up college football mentality.
And I understand. I kind of agree. Like I said, if 14, what are we at now for college football games with conference championships, and if they go to
13,
playoffs,
usually about 13 games.
So it's 13 games. Yeah. If we can keep it in the framework of the same amount of games, as I said earlier, I don't see a problem with playing more meaningful football. You know, like there's a couple of weeks in college football that don't matter. They're holdover games. There's some of those games where it's like, Ohio State is playing some terrible team, and it's just like, hey, we have